Nobody sat you down and told you something was off. That is, honestly, the strangest part of all this. There was no single moment you can point at, no obvious wound with a clear date attached to it. You grew up, went to school, came home, had dinner, did the normal things. And from the outside, genuinely, everything looked okay. But there was something quietly missing the whole time. Not dramatic enough to notice, not loud enough to name, just not there, like a door in the house you never really thought to open. And after enough time, you stopped thinking about it at all. So you grew into an adult who people call capable, reliable, easygoing, strong, the one who handles things, the one who does not make a fuss. And nobody ever stopped to ask, wait, where did all of that come from? Here at Psychology Learnma, that is exactly the kind of question we sit with. Because sometimes the traits people praise most in us started somewhere we never expected. Today we are going inside 7 completely ordinary things you probably do every single day. Things people may have even complimented you on, and we are looking at what might actually be underneath them. And before we go any further, I want to be clear about one thing. This is not a diagnosis. It is not a verdict on your parents or your childhood. Most of what we are talking about today did not come from cruelty. It came from limitation. Parents who could not show up emotionally were often never shown how themselves. They gave what they had. The question is just, what did that leave in you? So watch this the way you would look into a mirror, not to judge what you see, just to see it more clearly than before. The first thing is something that moves so fast you might not even catch it happening. Something occurs. Maybe someone cancels. Maybe a comment lands wrong. Maybe you are just sitting alone and a heaviness settles in for no real reason. And before that feeling has a name, before it even fully arrives, something inside you quietly smooths it over. And what comes out is, I'm fine, or doesn't matter, or I'm just tired. You package it up, make it neat, hand the world a cleaner version of what was actually going on inside you. And from the outside, that looks like maturity, like someone who does not overreact, like someone easy to be around. But what is actually happening is that your inner world is not being expressed, it is being managed. And those are very different things. Think about a child who is upset. In a house where that is okay, someone notices. They come over. They ask what is going on. They make space for the feeling to exist. The child learns, this is safe to bring. This matters. Now think about a child who is upset, and the response is irritation, or silence, or stop being dramatic, or just no response at all. That child does not stop feeling things. Feelings do not disappear because nobody welcomes them. What changes is what the child does with them. They learn. The acceptable version of emotion is the small one, the tidy one, the one that does not cost anyone anything. So they start editing before the feeling even fully lands. And 20 or 30 years later, that child is you. And you are sitting somewhere with something real happening inside you. And by the time it reaches your mouth, it has already been translated into something polite. I'm okay, honestly, even when you are really not. The tricky thing is, the editing can become so fast and so automatic that you genuinely believe you feel fine. You are not performing for anyone. You have just gotten so practiced at skipping over your real reactions that you barely register them anymore. It is like a conversation happening in another room, one you have been standing outside so long that you can barely make out the words. The second thing follows directly from the first. When you stop being able to feel clearly what you feel, something else gets hazy too. You stop knowing what you actually want. Someone asks something simple. Where do you want to eat? What do you feel like doing? And there is just nothing there. Not politeness, not flexibility, a genuine blankness where a preference should be. So you say what feels safest. You don't mind, whatever, you pick, and part of you feels quietly relieved when someone else makes the decision. For a lot of people who grew up in homes where their inner world did not really get reflected back to them, where they were rarely asked what they wanted, rarely heard when they answered, rarely shown that their preferences were relevant information, the habit of checking in with themselves just quietly fades because it never led anywhere. Because nobody made it feel like it mattered. So in adulthood, the fuzziness is not about small decisions. It spreads into the bigger ones. What kind of life do I actually want? What kind of relationships feel right? What do I actually need from the people around me? These questions can feel weirdly difficult, not because something is wrong with your thinking, but because the muscle for answering them was never really built. The third thing looks like a social skill, and in a lot of ways, it genuinely is one. You walk into a room and something switches on. You clock the energy without thinking about it. You can tell who is tense, who is fine, who is holding something back. You sense a shift in someone's mood before they have said a word, and you adjust. Your tone changes. Your volume drops or rises. The topic you were about to bring up gets quietly shelved. All of it happens automatically, almost before you're conscious of doing it. People call this being perceptive, emotionally intelligent, easy to be around. But the honest question is, where does a skill like this actually come from? Because that kind of automatic room reading usually develops in childhood, in homes where the emotional atmosphere was unpredictable. Not necessarily explosive, just variable. Warm sometimes and completely unavailable other times. A child in that environment learns very quickly that reading the mood of the adults around them is not a social nicety. It is a form of navigation. It tells them whether it is safe to ask for something, whether this is a moment to be visible or a moment to disappear, whether the warmth is available right now or whether they need to wait. So they become very good at it, remarkably good, because for them it was not optional. And now, as an adult, you walk into every room doing the same thing, scanning, adjusting, managing. You fit yourself to the emotional temperature of the space before anyone has to ask you to. The cost of this is real, though, even when it is invisible. When all your attention is going outward, when you are constantly tracking and adjusting and managing the room, very little is left for your own experience. You can leave a gathering and realize you have no idea how you actually felt during it. And there is a lonelier version of this cost. If you are always adjusting yourself to match whoever you are with, you can get very good at fitting in while never quite feeling known. Fitting is about being acceptable. Being known is something else entirely, and that difference, quiet as it is, matters more than most people realize. The fourth thing gets mistaken for strength almost every time. You handle things yourself. You research before you ask. You manage problems privately. And when someone offers to help, genuinely offers, no strings, just wants to make something easier for you, something in you tightens before they even finish the sentence. No, I've got it. I'm fine. Really. Thank you, though. And you carry it alone again. For a lot of people, this started with a very early and very quiet lesson. Help was asked for, and it did not come. Or it came with a cost. Irritation, sighing, being made to feel like a burden, and a child who experiences that not once, but consistently, eventually stops asking. Not as a decision, just as an adjustment. Needing starts to feel riskier than struggling. So they become someone who does not need, who handles it, who figures it out, and they get genuinely good at it. The self-sufficiency is real, but underneath it, underneath all that capability, there is often an exhaustion that does not get talked about. The exhaustion of always being your own only resource, of never quite letting support actually arrive, of managing everything privately while appearing completely fine to everyone around you. And the strangest part is what happens when genuine care does show up. Someone kind, someone who actually wants to be there for you. And instead of relief, what arrives is discomfort, a strange urge to deflect, to minimize, to get back to the giving side of the exchange as fast as possible, because needing felt dangerous once, and the nervous system does not automatically know that the situation has changed. The fifth thing looks like generosity, and sometimes it genuinely is, but there is a version of it worth looking at more closely. You are most comfortable when you are useful, when you are the one helping, the one fixing, the one who remembered, who showed up, who made things easier. And when someone tries to do those things for you, when the care comes in your direction, something shifts. You deflect it, redirect it, get back to the giving position as quickly as you can. For many people, this started when that emotional needs did not get much response, but being helpful did. Maybe the house felt warmer when they were the easy one. Maybe a parent lit up when they helped instead of asked. And from that, the child drew a very quiet conclusion. My value is connected to what I contribute. When I am useful, I belong. When I need something, I become a burden. So they got very good at giving. at anticipating, at holding space for everyone else. And this works. It creates closeness and appreciation and a sense of having a place. But something important goes missing along the way, the belief that they are allowed to just exist without earning it, without producing, without serving, and the loneliness that sits inside always being the capable, generous one, always giving, rarely receiving, is not small. It is just quiet enough to ignore most of the time. The sixth thing is a particular asymmetry that a lot of people recognize but cannot always explain. Someone says something genuinely kind. They tell you that you did something well, that they look up to you, that having you around makes a difference to them. And it lands on the surface for a moment, and then it is just gone. You move on. Maybe you deflect with a joke. Maybe you immediately point to something you could have done better. But the same day, someone offers a small, gentle piece of criticism, and that one stays. You replay it in the car, before sleep the next morning. You examine it from every angle. The kind thing disappeared in seconds. The critical thing is still there days later. This happens because consistent emotional attunement in childhood builds something very specific, a stable inner platform where both praise and criticism can land without either one defining you completely. But when that attunement was not consistently there, the platform stays uncertain, and on uncertain ground, positive feedback has nowhere solid to settle. It feels temporary, like the person does not really know you well enough yet to mean it. But criticism confirms something that was already quietly suspected, so it sinks in fast and stays. This is not simple, low confidence. Many people with this pattern are highly functional and impressive from the outside. But privately, there is a voice that is much harder on them than they would ever be on anyone else. A voice that was built in all the moments they were not quite clearly enough seen or valued as a child. And one of the effects is that being truly known can feel quietly dangerous, because if someone really sees you fully, they might find what the performance has been covering. The seventh thing ties all the others together. Everything looks fine. You are functioning. You are showing up. And then, one ordinary day, something breaks through. You cry somewhere unexpected. You snap at someone you care about. You wake up completely hollow and cannot explain why. And the moment feels out of proportion to what just happened. But it was not this moment. This moment was just where the backlog became too much to hold. All the signals that were not attended to, the tiredness that was pushed through, the loneliness that was smoothed over, the hurt that was translated into fine, they did not disappear. They accumulated, slowly and quietly, until one small, ordinary thing tipped it over. This is what happens when you spend years treating your own inner signals as low priority. The body gives you information, constantly. Fatigue, sadness, loneliness, the need for rest or space or connection. These are not dramatic signals. They are just quiet and steady. But if you grew up in an environment where your needs were not noticed or responded to, you learned to treat those signals as irrelevant. You learned to keep moving. And in adulthood, that means you do not notice you are tired until you are completely exhausted. You do not notice you are lonely until you feel suddenly abandoned. You do not notice you needed something until the absence of it becomes a crisis. The signals were there the whole time. You were just trained not to follow them. And that, more than any single habit, is the deepest effect of what we are talking about today. Not a specific behavior, a disconnection from yourself, a fundamental learned habit of looking outward while the quiet conversation happening inside you gets quieter and quieter, until one Tuesday it gets loud enough that it finally cannot be ignored. And that moment, as difficult as it feels, is actually your inner world refusing to stay invisible any longer. So here is what all of this adds up to. 7 ordinary things. Things that looked like personality. Things people may have praised. Things you may have built your whole identity around. And now you are seeing that some of them might have started somewhere else, not as who you are, but as what you learn. And I want to be careful about what that means. It does not mean your childhood was a disaster. It does not mean your parents failed you on purpose. What it means is that some part of you adapted, found ways to navigate an environment that was not giving you everything you needed emotionally. And those adaptations were intelligent. They were the most reasonable available response to what was actually there. but they were built for that situation, that house, that version of the world, and you are not there anymore. The nervous system does not automatically know that. It keeps running the old program, keeps editing and managing and self-containing even when the original reason is long gone. And that gap between the old wiring and the actual life you're living now is where a certain kind of quiet exhaustion lives. Healing from this is not about becoming someone different. It is not dramatic. It starts with something much smaller, a pause, just a breath of space before the automatic response, a pause before you say fine, before you deflect the help, before you take on someone else's weight without checking how much you are already carrying. These small interruptions are how the wiring slowly starts to update. You do not have to stop being caring or capable or reliable. You just have to make a little more room for yourself inside all of it, for the unedited feeling, for the actual preference, for the need that arrived before it became a crisis, for the care that was offered without immediately calculating how to return it. You were not too much as a child. Your feelings were not too big. Your needs were not unreasonable. You were just a small person in an environment that did not have quite enough space for all of what you were. But you are not in that environment anymore. And what you do with that, slowly, in your own time, in your own way, that is yours to decide. If something in this video landed for you, if one of these 7 things felt less like general information and more like something you actually recognized from the inside, I want to know which one. Leave it in the comments, because naming it, even just to yourself, is not a small thing. That is actually where awareness begins to move. And if you look through the comments, you will probably find you are nowhere near as alone in this as it might feel right now. This is Psychology Learnma. This is what we do here. We take the quiet, complicated, often unnamed parts of the human experience, and we look at them honestly and carefully. Not to diagnose, not to label, just to help you understand yourself a little more clearly than before. If that is useful to you, subscribe and stay. There is a lot more worth exploring here. Take care of yourself. And today specifically, I actually mean that.